Hey everyone, Marsh from Consequence here. I'm going to be doing the tier list. I do this every time. Uh, it is 100% accurate. But real talk, it is what, 8 days away from the raid. We just got a huge tuning post. We probably won't know things. Well, we 100% won't know things until the Monday night before. But that's almost too late for people. So I'm just gonna make a list on what we think um, is going on right now. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove this bottom tier because I think everything's playable and in the top 100 even. Um, Note that this list is made for not Race to World First, but the top 100 because the Race to World First, one, they have access to literally any comp they want, and two, their players are on a different level. Um, so this is just for like a very solid guild. So let's start at the bottom. I'm going to put Survival Hunter. They've made some changes. It's not like terrible at just pure single target or pure AoE, but it doesn't really do like what it really did in season one, and that is the actual problem here. So again, playable could be changed, could be buffed, but right now there's two other hunter specs that you would definitely lean to over this one. Next, we're gonna have Outlaw. It's just a bad prog spec. I know it like looks fancy like in farm logs. It's got looks solid on some bosses, but can't really run away from the boss. And in prog, it's always really struggled unless there's like an exact scenario that its profile works for, which is pretty rare. So last, we're gonna have Og. There is a reality where Og is better. I'm not gonna deny that. But that reality is going to be behind a spreadsheet and a specific comp, which is doable for guilds, but harder to execute. So again, this goes into the category of like, okay, if you need an extremely niche scenario, then this class would go in. So then we're going to hop into C tier. C tier are classes like you could definitely see swinged in, and if you have an extremely good player on it, you would definitely have them in there. Um, and the bottom of this list here, it's going to be Prez. Uh, Prez has seemed to fall behind a little. It does no damage, and there's other healers that kind of do what it could do in season one. The only thing doing Prez some favors, which makes it like sneaky potentially good, is that Og just got nerfed. Dev is pretty good, but not insane. So if you're looking for Evoker utility, you could get it out of a Prez Evoker. And then that fourth healer slot is kind of up for grabs, and we'll talk about that. So next is Holy Paladin. It caught another buff. It's still not very good. I think the Paladins are a little overreacting on it, but you're probably not bringing your aura from this buff at the moment. But like I said, that fourth healing slot is very open, and if you have a really sick Holy Paladin, there's no reason not to run it. It's still fine. It's just hard to play. Next, we would have Demo Lock. If I can open my eyes, there we go. So Demo Lock, Warlocks are being a little weird with their sims. I haven't really seen any data. I'm just going off of like what testing has seen, like what testing has shown and what dummies that people are pulling. Um, it was at one point looking like the pure single target spec, just like standstill, or like it might be good on like the first boss where you can just cleave off the boss and just kill stuff. Um, so niche scenarios, you might see it on like one or two bosses. Next, Guardian Druid, a completely fine tank. There is, Pumps does exist. He's insane. He will play it. He will make it look really good. This just goes under the thing of like if you have a sick player, just play it. To note, all tanks are good. It's just that some of the tanks are a little safer. They do more damage. But again, if you have a sick player, just let it rip. Next is going to be assassination. This profile really hasn't changed. I saw some logs of it doing like very low damage, which is why I put it here, but it could just be like a fluke log. Easily could move up a tier or two. It's just like, very consistent. But sub is looking a lot better, so I kind of like defaulted to put Sin a little lower. And then last, there's Marks. Marks is kind of like this fringe B. You can kind of like move it up here if you'd like, but it's got some positives. It's got some good niche scenarios. It does have some negatives as well, and it's just like BM is just way better at most scenarios. So again, you might see marks for like one or two things, but it's mostly going to be BM in my opinion at this second. So now we're going up to B tier. B tier is weird because I think the top half of B tier is a lot better than like the lower end of B tier, but they're all like classes you like could easily like put in. So the first thing I'm gonna put in is Resto Shaman, and I know all the Resto Shamans are dooming, and I honestly thought about putting it here to one of those fringe classes. But the thing with Resto Shaman is if you have the right type of Resto Shaman in your guild, it is an extremely safe healer to bring. Um, Most players just like kind of just see like middle of the road healing and mana problems and just spamming like one or two buttons. But this here, if you're putting certain stuff on the right players, it's extremely valuable, and Slink is always extremely good. Next we have Affliction. It just got buffed. It's still not insane, but it definitely would probably see play on some of these bosses. So it kind of went from being like dead to being like pretty decent. Uh, Next here, I have two tanks. I just kind of grouped them together. I have Venge and Brew. The way I kind of view the tanks is I like kind of grouped them up in pairs. Or I tried to do two of them in pairs each. Venge and Brew, extremely good, extremely viable. Brew, especially like if you bring it, I have literally no problems. Venge had some problems on PTR, but it does good damage. So if you have sick Venge, just take it. Um, but right now, like Mistweaver and Windwalker have do a lot of damage, so that hurts Brew, and Havoc is good, so it hurts Venge. And they kind of just fall into this B category. Next, I have Unholy. Unholy, completely fine, solid class. Um, no issues with it. It's just a fallback spec to Frost now when you need to hit the boss from a distance like Kaveza. That's all Unholy is. So, next on the list, you got Ret, safe class, utility. Probably will see it, in the race world first one or two times at least. Um, Pretty consistent, nice damage profile. The last raid fit them like basically perfectly, and I don't think this upcoming raid does. But it's just a very consistent class, so it belongs here. Next is Frost Mage. Frost Mage is fine. It does similar things to Fire. It's just not Fire. Um, Fire brings it's easy to play. You cheat death. Um, and Frost just needs a little more like of the small attention. It's just not as good for those reasons. But its damage profile and output are basically the same. So if you're extremely good at Frost and you can get away with not having the shortcuts of Fire, then just send it. You're good. Next I have Resto Druid. Resto Druid is looking pretty decent because you might not play all the Druid, like the DPS Druid specs on every boss. That might have changed now with the Feral buffs. But it does pretty good tank healing if I recall, and Seems like a pretty safe fourth healer option. Um, but like I said, I'd be confident with anything being in the fourth healer spot for any guild right now. Next, I have Arcane. I almost put Arcane in A, but Spy Masters really helped them, and kind of like the way Anstrack worked really helped them. But like Arcane will be every single tier, it seems like it could just be randomly insane. When I mean randomly, I mean I'm too dumb to realize how insane it is. I'm not a mage player. Um, but for right now, I'm gonna put it in B. I think mages are really gonna flex between Arcane and Fire, is my guess, with mostly Fire. Um, but we'll see. I'm gonna be wrong, so it doesn't matter. Next, I've got Ellie. Ellie's very consistent, easy to play. They kind of like nuked Primordial Wave, which is really annoying because if that was still good, the class would be insane. Um, if you're a sick Ellie player, no problem taking them. They could easily take up, a Warlock or a Shadow spot or whatever. So, yeah, got no issues with that class. Next, I've got Sub. Gonna be the best rogue spec. Absolutely solid class. Um, and it's kind of been on the rise a little. It's been doing well on farm, but I'm almost certain these guilds will take one rogue most times. So, we'll see how it does. Also, I want to note, like, this is what I was saying. I didn't want to make, like, a bunch of tiers, but some of these classes over here are definitely better than, like, maybe these two classes. Um, I could move this here maybe, or move both of them here. But, it is what it is. So next I have, this is gonna maybe surprise people because it surprised me when I like looked into it, is Fury Warrior. I'm aware they're simming high. It seems like they're not going to be really playing that sim build though. When I was talking to people, maybe they were gaslighting me. They still can do on-demand AoE, which is really good, so you'll definitely see them. Um, but Arms is nuts, and will be an Arms tier at this very second. Next, I have Feral. Big mystery. It got buffed a lot, and you'll probably see a situation where you'll have a balanced druid, a rested druid. Let's rank the next two, and I'll talk about all this. So I have Frost DK, and then I have balanced druid. So just to get Frost DK out of the way, extremely good class. Does high damage, does great cleave. Um, it has its old Frost DK problems, which is why you go to Unholy on occasion, but it's definitely like a fringe A class. It brings grab success, whatever. It's good. And then the two Druid specs, I have Frost in the middle because I think balance is slightly better. But I haven't seen any new Feral like Sims or data. But my guess is you'll play balance on any fight that needs spread cleave. If it's pure single target, I think what the top end guilds were going to do, like the top 10 guilds that we're going to do, were going to play a Resto Druid and then bring a really strong single target class because Balanced Druid isn't insane in single target. Now, with Feral being potentially really good at a single target, you could see a more damage oriented healer in that fourth spot or another like HPS type of healer. Maybe not that has Resto Druid's profile. I know Resto Druid does a lot of HPS. And you take a Feral as that buff. So big mystery around the Druids. In a perfect world, you could flex all three and everything's perfect. But for most guilds, they're just gonna have a balance main, or they have a balance main who can go Feral. So that's what basically everyone's gonna do. So just throwing out that the Druid thing is a little up for grabs, but you probably won't see Guardian. Probably. So next here, I have Dev. Um, Dev does about like 2.7 mil single target, which is all right. Its damage profile is extremely nice for raids. It's like one of those fringe A tiers. Again, it's like much better than like the classes down here, but I didn't want to like make another tier with just a few classes. And it's definitely something that could easily be stackable where you take two of. Um, Again, Fringe A. I think that healers have kind of like gotten a little needy with like spatial paradox and stuff like that. Um, because Evoker utility is just super sick. But very solid class at the moment. So we're gonna hop up to A. The bottom of A is gonna be Prot Warrior. Good damage. The sim everyone probably saw is slightly bait. You cannot just freely execute as a tank. Tanks need to do stuff. And if you look at the last boss, they're doing stuff. So it's bait, but they're still like a very good tank. If you have a sick Prot Warrior player, you will be happy. Um, Next is Windwalker. Windwalker does extremely good. It has extremely good damage profile. They might be kicked out of like the Race World First and top 10 guilds because other melee might just be better. Um, which is just a reality. Doesn't mean the class is bad, and it also doesn't mean like the 90 other guilds outside the top 10 into the top 100. They don't have like four arms warriors, so you'd be taking things like a Windwalker potentially. So Windwalker super sick. Its damage profile matches up with the raid. It's really mobile, um, and it's a pretty safe class to bring if you have a good player. Next, I have Shadow Priest. Some of these fights cater to Shadow extremely well. Some of them they might have trouble. Um, but the classes that they're good at, they are filthy at. And that is something to keep in mind. Very good. Spread Cleave, which is very good on some of these fights. As I said, it's a good class to have. You should probably have one. Next is Fire Mage. I almost put Frost up. Not Frost. I almost put Arcane up here too. I was thinking about it, but I think Fire is going to be the go-to for all these mages. Arcane will bring like funnel and execute and all this like really good stuff. Fire is just going to be really consistent. The tier is really good. Um, and it was the most popular spec for sure in raid testing. So next here, Destro. Destro, again, this is a class you could see two of easily on some fights. Spread Cleave, decent single target. It's pretty bad, lower mid, but anytime there's ads involved, the Destro value just skyrockets. It was getting a lot of nerfs, but it's also like just really solid in what this is a class for Destro Warlocks. This is a raid for Destro Warlocks. So I think it's going to see a decent amount of play. Next, I have two tanks, Blood, Prot. We think that these are the two like premier tanks. DK, very safe, does decent damage, brings the DK utility, even though grips don't seem to be like super good in this raid. So you could see like if you were gonna swap out one of these two tanks, it would probably be the DK. But it's a very safe class, can't die, doesn't need heals. Very good for prog. And then Prot Pally, it's where you're probably gonna get your Pally buff, and you also bring the whole Pally utility kit with you. Not gonna do the craziest damage in the world, but Pally utility is Pally utility, and you're getting the buff, and that's gonna make it A. Or next here, we're gonna have Havoc. Havoc got buffed, then bug fixed, and it's extremely good. It can funnel. There's definitely potential to see two of them. I don't think the chance of seeing two Havocs is like less than. I think this chance of seeing two Havocs is less than like two Destro Locks or two Mages or two Shadows even. Um, but this is not entirely ordered like to the T, and it's just a super sick class, low key. So Havoc goes there. Next, Beast Mastery. Um, it was simming like almost at 3.5. Then it got bug fixed to 3. Then it got 8% nerf to like 2.7. It's still good. When Beast Mastery Hunter is near the top of a single target sim, it is one of the best classes in the game. It can do all it can do all the mechanics on the in moving while doing its sim DPS, and it's easy to play, and it has very defensive. So it's safe. It's going to be valuable. It can AOE now. Um, are you going to take 6 of them like you were 4 days ago? No, but it's extremely good. Next here, we have Enhance. I'm kind of always teetering on Enhance. I think the Warriors 12 first guilds use 2 Enhance is better than like literally every other guild. It's still extremely good. Will do a ton of damage, and it's probably where most guilds will get their Shaman buff from. So you can see 2 of them, but again, most guilds will probably do 1. Next, I have healers. I just grouped them all together. Holy, Disc, Mistweaver. Uh, all of them are good. Mistweaver was consistently the best healer in testing. It did get nerfed slightly. It's still very good. Disc also contested the best healer in testing. It got one talent tree nerfed. The other one is still insane. They're all crying. It's still really good. You are probably going to take one, and if not, you can fall back to Holy. And Holy is just very solid. Brings PI, does solid healing, brings symbols. It's just solid. These are your 3 premier healers for sure. And then in S, Arms, almost best single target in the game. Insane execute. Um, it's literally can do everything. It maybe is a little squishy, but in the right hands, this class is going to pop off. So, this is the tier list. I tried to keep it short and talk fast. I did want to show off this. I made this raid comp uh, in like 2 seconds. This is probably what things are going to look like for the most part. These are all the raid buffs. You could see Balance and Feral swapping out. This is what I was talking about. You'll probably see Shadow in most of the time. You could see any one of these healers depending on the fight. You can even see a Holy Priest. Um, I removed the Monk. You know, you could put any healer here. You could put in another Beast Mastery or 3 more Arms Warriors if you want, another Dev. So you have, a Windwalker if you have that. So you have some things to play around with here. This is probably something that, guilds might be able to replicate. This is just an example. Um, this is probably not super hard to replicate for most guilds. We're not running this, um, but this is just an example. But anyway, that's all I got. Uh, there'll be notes in like 24 hours where this is all wrong, and I'm gonna get screenshot later. But hopefully this was helpful. Good luck in the tier and prepping. Peace.